What was the difference with Band on the Run as opposed to the previous work that he was doing as a solo artist that was not catching on with, the type of audience that Band on the Run did?
Well, it's hard to say. With the first album, he recorded that on his own, partly in his house, partly at EMI and other studios, but playing all the instruments himself. And people complained that it was a little too homespun, even though it had Maybe I'm Amazed on it, which is one of his most enduring tracks. So then he went to New York and recorded Ram and had session musicians, had an orchestra, really focused on it being a polished record, unlike the first McCartney album. And the reaction was, well, this is way too slick. So then he wants a band because he wants to tour. So he puts together the first iteration of Wings. They only rehearsed for like 2 or 3 days before going to the studio, and they did Wildlife pretty quickly. And the criticism of that was that it was a little too ramshackle. Well, okay. Now he's a little dispirited. Red Rose Speedway kind of took a long time to make because they went on tour in between, and it's hard to characterize that album because it was supposed to be a double album that would show Wings as a band, and EMI basically forced him to make it a single album, which made it more of a solo McCartney album because a lot of the tracks that were thrown off it were things that other band members were singing and things like that. So Band on the Run, I think part of what happened was, first of all, he had an extraordinary collection of songs for that. Band on the Run itself is really quite a dramatic piece, and it had its roots in a meeting where they were discussing the breakup of Apple, and it was, they had to attend, and none of them liked going to business meetings. And, he's sitting there writing, if I ever get out of here, first line of Band on the Run. So he had that, and he had Jet and Mrs. Vanderbilt, 1985. I mean, he just had an exceptional number of really good tunes, but he also had a special impetus to make that a great album, which is that on the eve of their trip to Lagos, Nigeria, where he wanted to record this for various reasons, Denny Seiwell, the drummer, and Henry McCulloch, the lead guitarist, quit. So it was just the three of them. And, there's an aspect of Paul's personality which can be summarized as, I'll show you. In a way, his career after the Beatles was partly, I'll show you. I'm not going to just stop. I'm going to keep going and I'm going to do my thing. And now he's in Lagos, Nigeria with just the three of them. He's doing the drums himself. He's doing a lot of the stuff himself. And now we had two groups of people to show, the Beatles and the first iteration of Wings. It's like, okay, you're not going to leave me and think I'm not going to do a great album. I'm going to do the best album we've done. And that drive, I think, really pushed him to make it an exceptionally good album, and it worked. I mean, it's not like he didn't always want to make exceptionally good albums. But here he had that extra impetus of proving himself when other people around him had sort of given up on the idea of Wings.